Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a motorcycle racing TV show, Team Chicago Challenge. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com. My website is teamchicago.tv. First, I want to start off by saying I'm always thankful that Bruce Brown, who did On Any Sunday, Dave Despain, and Dennis Torres were involved with motorcycle TV shows, have given me permission to use all their footage whenever in my show, Team Chicago Challenge. So, you remember Cooch Fest? Well, at Cooch Fest a few weeks ago, I talked to Curt Krause, who was the 1965 novice champ at Santa Fe Speedway. Well, Curt sent me a VHS tape, and it said George Will's Scrambles. Well, he must have taped over to George Will's Scrambles, but what he taped over with is very important. First, he's got footage from Ashland Fairgrounds, half-mile racing from 1998, and I'm going to add on to some of the footage that I shot in 2008. So we've got a great interview with great friends of mine, Dick Mann, Neal King, and then we're going to get into the Legends. Is another clip he gave me. The BMW Legends was a road race group that put on races in the late 1990s. So I got a sad note in one of the clips. Then we're going to go to the clip where I sat down with Gary Nixon and he raced that same series. And we'll get Gary's comments about that, Gary's comments about racing with AHRMA, vintage racing down in Florida, which I was down back in '97, I believe, and we're going to run by Roger Reiman's shop. So let's don't forget my email, teamdan45@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from my audience as far as what do you think of these shows I put together. teamdan45@gmail.com.
Dedicated to bikes of days gone by. At nearby Ashland County Fairgrounds, many of these same people were treated to a rare gathering of vintage flat-track men and machines, not on display, but in motion. Turn back the clock a few decades, look past a few wrinkles around the steel gray eyes of two-time Grand National champ Dick Mann, and you were transported back in time to when Bugs and his rivals ruled the roost. We don't mean chickens.
I have no business doing this, but we thought it'd be fun to get together. Ronnie Rawl and George Roeder were absolutely unbeatable in this part of the country in the 50s and 60s, anyway, it's just good to get those guys out here again and let the fans see what they can do.
The point of this meeting of some of the greats of the era was to relive what were for many the glory days of Grand National racing in Ohio, when Mann was the man. But when he came to this part of the country, he faced formidable opposition from locals like Larry Darr, Ronnie Rawl, and George Roeder Sr., among others. Neal Keane was a West Coast star, winning at Ascot in 1961. He too traveled to the horse track half miles like Ashland and had his hands full with the boys from the Buckeye State. Larry Darr loaned Peaches Keane his BSA for the feature, but would race it himself later in the 500 Classic.
Yeah, I'm going to let him help me get mine to run.
And then you're going to ride it, right?
And I'm going to ride this one.
Right.
No, this is mine. This is over there.
Hollywood stunt coordinator and vintage racer Gary Davis hauled his collection to Ashland to race, but with one eye on the ladies. Hey, these guys still got it in more ways than one.
The track's perfect. It's got a great crowd of people watching, which we very seldom see in our vintage racing, so it's really nice to see that happen.
As the sellout crowd took their seats enjoying the practice sessions, anticipation built to a fever pitch for the hometown hero, George Roeder, who appeared to be the overwhelming favorite, even to his opponents.
The reason George will win is, unfortunately, George thinks that this is not vintage racing. George thinks it's 1968 still.
Just 6 days earlier, Dad was on hand at the new I-96 Speedway where Georgie Jr. won his first Grand National, and number 2 son Jess won the 883 race.
That was a one great moment, man. I tell you, if I had to go buy a helmet, I could have never found one big enough to fit my head.
The swelling from that experience had apparently subsided enough for Roeder to suit up and go racing. Gio Sr. had 8 Grand National victories of his own to reflect upon, and twice finished runner-up for the championship, by 1 point in 1963 to Dick Mann, and again in 1967 behind Gary Nixon. When the green flag flew for the feature with Roeder inside Mann, Keane, and Rawl, he dropped the hammer on his big Harley and quickly pulled out to a big lead. Keene on the low line with his 500 Beezer battled Rawl on another KR for the runner-up spot. The Flying Farmer was just too much for him, though, and Keene's prophecy proved all too true. It seemed like 68 again for sure in more ways than one. The Lucas Electrics on Mann's BSA turned out the lights on him. The Prince of Darkness apparently still has a lease on the throne. Roeder took the win and a lap of honor to the cheers of his many fans. As the sun began to cast a longer shadow on the remaining races, smiles were much in evidence among the officials and fans on hand for what was truly a memorable occasion. One it is hoped will be repeated when motorcycle people are again drawn like moths to the flame that once burned brighter than any other. Reporting for Bike Week, I'm Brian Drever.
You know it, practice is called and practice is ready to take place. You see a couple, this is classic bikes, this is classic 500, 750. There's Ronnie Rawl, and he's on a KR Harley-Davidson. The other bike was a 500cc Triumph. The classic bikes are bikes running in the 50s and the 60s. There's George Wills, number one. He could be on his KR or he could be on his WR. He has two Harley-Davidsons, a KR and a WR. And as these bikes head out for the first practice session, Ashland County Fairgrounds. Roadies out there. Some of these riders I know, some of the riders I don't know, but they're getting ready for this exciting event. AHRMA Vintage National. This is the big one. Thousands and thousands of screaming fans come out. But practice starts early. As they head down the front straightaway, Ronnie Rawls, first rider by. George Wills is right there with him. A couple more bikes scooting down the front straightaway. What a sight. What a group of riders, group of bikes. Some beginners, some veterans like Ronnie Rawl. Ronnie Rawl has probably been racing for 40, 45 years, I would guess. So as the checkered flag comes out, ending this practice session, the bikes are heading back into the pits, and we're going to catch up with George Wills. George is going to tell me about the two bikes he's riding out here. So let's go talk to George Wills.
Whew, track is nice.
All right,
man.
so tell me about the track.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's great. You can ride it anywhere you want.
All right, so tell me about the classes you're running. Tell me your name.
George Wills.
And the classes you're running.
Dinosaur and Classic 500, 750.
And what kind of bikes?
Both Harleys, a WR, 48 WR, and a 53 KR.
And which one's your favorite bike?
This one's better to handle. This one's mine. This one's Dan Calkins.
Better get it.
Another practice session. Look at this BSA. Pretty gas tank, number 10. The skeleton leathers, A on the helmet. Could that be? I believe that is Dave Aldana. Now he pronounces his name Dave Aldana, but he is one of the most famous motorcycle flat track racers. Back in the era of the movie, On Any Sunday, it was Dave Aldana, Gene Romero, Burt Lawwell, Dick Mann, who made the show On Any Sunday, and he's here at Ashland to do a little racing. He's out testing that 500 single. This is one of the fast practice sessions. Some Sportsman 750 bikes, some singles out there. They go scooting around Ashland's beautiful half-mile track. But after this practice, I had a chance to talk to Dave Aldana, one of my old friends.
Hi, Hi, my name is David Aldana. I'm originally from Southern California, San Diego to be specific, and I now live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am currently still unemployed. Luckily, I've been able to make a good chunk of money while I was younger racing motorcycles, and I've done a little bit of everything. Done some flat track, motocross, ice racing, road racing, hill climb. I just do anything that involves motorcycles.
Well, let me, I should point out to the audience that you were the star of On Any Sunday. In fact, I knew you, Dave Aldana, before I even met you because Jim Bolin at A Cycle World was a BSA guy. He said, hey, you got to come out to Santa Fe, you got to see Dave Aldana and Jim Rice. So did you make any money from doing On Any Sunday, or how did that all work out? Give me a little bit about putting that, working on that show.
All right. Well, first of all, I was one of the 4 characters. I wasn't the main character. Obviously, Gene Romero and Mert Lawwell and Malcolm Smith were the main characters. I had to be the subplot in that movie. And to answer your question in regards to making any money, yes, had I known he was going to make as much money as he did in the end and still being rented and being shown nationwide, I wish we'd have made a different deal. But as it turned out, he paid us $500 for a win, $300 per second. So we got something for the day he was filming. But little did we know he was going to buy half of Southern California with the money that he made. But it has done wonders for my and many other riders' careers in that it's kept our name out in the public for, gosh, all these years. People still, in fact, today I've already signed I don't know how many autographs just because people remember my name from that movie that did a lot for motorcycles. It turned motorcycling around from the Hell's Angel black leather image to the clean-cut professional as you see now. But it has progressed immensely from the time I was there till now. You know, the Hayden boys, Bubba Stewart, it's gotten to where they're making millions where...
So what's the most you ever made in 1 year? I mean, Nixon, Gary Nixon told me when he was #1, he made $40,000.
Well, as long as the IRS isn't listening, I signed a contract with a Honda in 1983 for $75,000. But at the end of my racing career, when Eddie Lawson was just starting out, they were getting signed for a couple million. So things progress, but it's all relative. You know, you could buy a gallon of gasoline in those days for 26 cents. But it's all relative. But again, the motorcycling and endorsements has gotten so much larger. And there's so much more involved. There was no television when we were racing to speak of. The movie was the only thing, that was the closest we got to television. And now that the events are televised, it has grown exponentially. I mean, it's really, I wish now, again, I was 21 years old again and had the talent I had in those days.
All right, let me throw something in. There is a track about 10 miles or 15 miles from here, Mount Gilead in Ohio. I was only a novice. You were an expert. You showed up on that BSA, and I'll tell you, nobody rode a cushion track like you did. So what do you think of this track compared to the good old days?
Well, I think Mount Gilead had a lot deeper cushion, and this thing's probably got about 1,000 more lights than that one did. It was like racing in the dark, so I maybe didn't know what I was doing exactly. But, you know, the bikes were slower, so it was maybe a little easier to ride, maybe, I don't know. But this one, you know, when I raced here, you know, 30-some years ago, seems to be about the same, to be honest with you. I don't notice any difference. The only other thing that might, you know, show up with you visibly would be, you know, here's a guy riding a bike, you know, 58 years old compared to a guy that was only 20 years old then, you know. There's a slight difference in the amount of courage we have these days.
All right, well, Dave, it's always great talking to you. I mean, you still are one of my heroes, and like I said, tell people when I seen the movie On Any Sunday, I said, boy, I wish I could ride as good as them guys. And I'll tell you, I'm so happy. I get to know, like I'm pretty good friends with Dick Mann. I'm great friends with Gary Nixon. So, and I'm happy to say that you're one of my friends.
Well, keep those youngsters coming, because the next generation are going to be the ones that benefit from all the things that we had to do at the beginning. So keep coming back to the races.
Thank you, Dave. And now the 1960s Classics race.
Now let's look at some of the racing action out here at the Ashland County Fairgrounds. AHRMA National. This is Classic 500, 750. This is one of the races that George Wills runs. Up front, it's like Rob McClendon, and he's out front on a Royal Enfield. Could that be a Royal Enfield up front? George Wills is right with him. Running second, you can see that number 1 on George Wills' back. He's on that KR 53 KR. Third place looks like that Ronnie Rawl. Ronnie Rawl's also on a KR. We see Rob Glendon go flashing by on that Royal Enfield 500 single. With a 500 singles could have overhead valve. The Harley-Davidson had side valve. They continue to battle around. Mike Metzler's out there. He's on a 67 Triumph. Justin Ziegler, he's on a KR also. And we see George Wills on that wheels through time, Illinois Harley-Davidson. 33, that's Paul Germain, and he's from Canada on a PSA 57 PSA Gold Star. What a great race. The 500 singles, overhead valve engine. The majority of them are from England, taking on the Harley-Davidson, the American made. This is how the race was in the 50s. Through the early 60s. Picking up the win, it was Rob McClendon. George Wills was second, and third place went to Paul Tremaine on that BSA.
What has some great racing footage from Ashland from 1998 and 2008 with great interviews. So let's look at the BMW Legends racing, road racing that took place in the late 1990s. We got a little sad note, and we also got Gary Nixon talking about that series and racing with AHRMA, and then we'll take a run by Roger Reiman's shop at that Curt Krause shot, and let's check that out.
In which the superstars of the past, both human and mechanical, roll once again to delight the senses and rekindle the memories. Sadly, this year the vintage schedule was touched by tragedy.
1996.
At a press conference on Monday, the BMW Legends were introduced for what was announced would be the final year of a Cycle Week tradition. In the crowd, Roger Reiman, winner of the original Daytona 200 in 1961, eager to bypass the formalities and get on with the racing. Wearing his now famous number 55, the Kewanee, Illinois native took to the track that has become synonymous with his career, joined by the best of the best over the years. Number 9, Gary Nixon won the opening round of the BMW Legends. 24 hours later, he and his colleagues reflected on the passing of a rival and a friend.
And like I say, we were big competitors over the years, and since this Legend started, you're more friends then. Before he was the Harley guys and I was the Triumph guys, and so he was Mr. Daytona. He's right here enjoying something he does, and this happens, and we're all sad.
I traveled to California with him 2 or 3 times, and he was a good guy to travel with. Him and I never drank or run around or acted wild, and we got along real good. His dad, Hank, went with us a couple times. Just a real nice guy.
On Tuesday morning, an accident during practice for round 2 of the BMW Battle of the Legends claimed the life of 3-time Daytona 200 winner Roger Reiman. The accident also left racer Mark Brailsford with a broken thumb and Don Emdy a fractured leg. The 58-year-old Reiman was pronounced dead at Halifax Medical Center. No cause of death was given.
I knew Roger, but we were never that close. And now Gary Nixon is going to tell us about his racing career in the late 1990s.
After my racing career, I think I rode the indoors, won the 250 amateur indoors there in Timonium. The wheeler was my bull target that Rodney rode. It was really good bull target. I drove to DeSiller on me. It ran really nice. And I went to a few races here and there, but I had a business now and a family, and didn't go to all the races, but went to a few. I'd never missed Daytona. And wasn't really in the bike scene, but they came up with this Legends racing. In fact, Rob Iannucci called me and asked me about it. I said, yeah, I'll do it. And they were actually paying money. BMW was going to do it. And so it was like former champions like me and close to the There was a couple of them a little bit older than me, and a few of them 10 years younger. But I kind of enjoyed that. I was able to keep up. In fact, I won the first race, the heat race they would have heat race and they go by points. And I couldn't believe the draft I got. I was back in 4th, 5th, 6th place, lap coming out of last corner of Daytona. Caught a draft, went by all of them, and didn't win the race, but I won the first heat race, I guess you call it. But I made a little bit of money on that, enjoyed doing it, and actually won 2 of them. I won 95, I won it. 96, I actually tied Jay Springsteen, which is pretty good. And he ended up winning the championship because of the motocross points scoring or system, or because he's better than me. Then they shortened when my friend Roger got killed in 97. We only ran 2 races, and ended up winning that one. And so I kind of got back into racing and enjoyed it. And one of the best feelings I've ever had, I was out practicing with Springer. We'd go out and practice 5 laps. And Springer, he was going for it. He wasn't backing off waiting for me, and I was going for it. And to be able to run with him, we'd pass each other back and forth, and I'd come in, and there's so much adrenaline, it just felt so good. And then the AHRMA was running. They were starting the thing. And the first year I rode a G50 along with the Legends. That was too much work, so I just rode the Legend bikes. And then 97, when that was over with, they have the AHRMA races, and I rode a BSA there, rode a Honda, and last year I rode, last couple of years, M3 Racing. Honda was really fast, nice. I feel good on that bike. So I'm back into racing. I got to race Springer's miler at Amateur National. Got 3rd, which 3rd sucks when you win. 3rd sucks. Bike was great. I just wasn't that confident yet. Springer said it best. He said you just weren't comfortable sideways at 100 miles an hour. I practiced for told everybody a month. It was actually only 3 weeks. But I did what I do when I go road racing. I should have put a steel shoe. I got a Daytona trial in my backyard at 120 remote control cars. Should have put my steel shoe on and went out there and run 20 or 30 minutes on that instead of doing what I did, because I just didn't feel comfortable. I didn't want to hurt Springer's bike, plus didn't want to hurt myself. And nothing wrong with the bike, but Springer just changed the gear next week and got 2nd on it. So I'm planning on riding Daytona next year, and Eric Soule, I've met him. In fact, I raced with him back over in Europe in '76. Now I've met him again, his girlfriend Sandrine. So I might be going to Boldora next year on the team with them. Not the fast one, I hope. I hope it's a vintage type race. But whatever it is, I'll enjoy doing it. And nowadays, used to, I'd go as fast as you had to go to win. Now I go fast as I feel comfortable and still enjoy it.
We had the Astrodome races down in Houston, Texas, which I thought was a pretty neat deal. They started out. Gary and all the boys came down, and I worked these pits, and it was a pretty neat deal. And he won the short track race, the first one there at the Astrodome, and I was down there with him. And I believe that he was the first motorcycle rider in the United States to take the checkered flag lap and do a wheelie across the finish line. And the stadium just, it just roared. And there were a lot of things that happened behind the scenes that, I don't know, we might not ought to talk about here, but we had a great time at the Astrodome. And in subsequent years as it went on. But I think that first one was probably the most memorable. He had those white leathers, and I don't know, it was a great spectacle for a great rider.
That was Sid Sims, one of Gary's good friends. And I had the opportunity to sit down with Gary Nixon, and we did 3 hours, and all that is available on DVD, but I'll give you information at the end of the show. Now we're at Roger Reiman's shop in Kewanee, Illinois. This is footage that Curt Krause shot. This here is Roger's street bike, his Harley-Davidson street bike. Next to it is a Harley-Davidson Sprint that Roger rode when he was a novice. And next to that is another Sprint that Roger road raced. This was a Memorial Day for Roger Reiman, and Curt Krause was good friends with Roger. And this Sportster here, I believe, is one of the bikes that Evel Knievel used for jumping. And now number 55 is Roger's Harley-Davidson road race bike. bike that he won, Daytona. When Daytona's 200-mile race moved into the stadium, and they quit racing on the beach, and Roger won the first one on the pavement. You see the gas tank from the Harley that Evel Knievel used to jump. And inside is one of Roger's flat track Harley-Davidson. And Curt shot the counter at the shop in Kewanee, Illinois. Like I stated, I knew Roger. I might have talked to him once or twice, but I can never say we were close friends. And a special thanks to Curt Krause. Those two clips from 97 and 98 inspired me to put this show together. And for more information on the Gary Nixon interviews, the 3 hours on DVD, contact me at teamdan45@gmail.com. 3 hours of Gary Nixon, great stuff. Contact me, and I love to hear from my audience. It's teamdan45@gmail.com. Remember, you can always search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing for great motorcycle racing action. Dan Schmitt Politics, to learn what makes America great. And I highly encourage you to visit the World of Motorcycle Museum. They're in Winamac, Indiana, 4 miles south of North Judson on Indiana Highway 39. But give them a call first at 574-896-3172. It's a great trip and a great collection of motorcycles. If you want to pick up your copy of the Team Chicago History Package, go to Rich's Yamaha in Lockport, Illinois. But give them a call first at 815-838-8130. Their website is richesyamaha.com. Pick up your copy of the Team Chicago History Package. If you want to learn everything there is to know about motorcycles, there's nothing like going to a swap meet. Here's a few of Walneck swaps coming up. We got Martinsville, Indiana, Woodstock, Illinois, Morris, Illinois, Shepherdsville, Kentucky, and then Princeton, Illinois. Go to walneckswap.com, walneckswap.com for more info.